We're down to the third and final game. One of these two teams' losing streak is going to end right here, as TOP and Vici are currently tied up 1-1 heading into that third and final deciding match. Raz, we saw in game number 1, TOP executed their team composition of Kennen, Galio, and Rakan fairly well, making a couple of mistakes along the way, but they picked up the victory. Game number 2, they tried their best to shut down Swift and go for those ganks. Didn't work out for them, and Vici executed their team composition revolving around Tarek very well. But in doing that, Vici still made a lot of mistakes in game number 2. Now my question is this going to come down to who can play the more flawless match? Who's going to make less of those unforced errors?
Yeah, and if I'll throw TOP under the bus by saying that their composition, which globally everyone looks towards this composition and says it's the easiest composition to put on. That you have the Jarvan Galio composition, or at least the combination, and you look towards the Gnar, the Thresh, and the Kalista to follow up, because you need follow-up for that. And there were two fights, that they just threw their Jarvan ultis, or they threw their Galio ulti with no follow-up, and they lost fights because they didn't really think about how the fights were supposed to play out. So had they have done that, and had those 2 dives from both bottom lane and mid lane had gone off without a hitch, had they waited for Galio a little bit more, that's early game for TOP. But that just didn't happen. So you're right, fewer mistakes. We'll see who comes out with a victory on this one.
Because on top of that, to repel those 2 dives coming out from Vici was really well played.
That's
especially
true.
the one in the bottom lane, 2-on-3, repelled both the Jarvan's first initiation as well as the Galio coming in a little bit later on. And then moving into the next one was a great outplay, which actually put them in the lead from that mid lane.
That's true, and here's the thing about that bottom lane dive that really, the reason why that was so hard to pull off here, it was just because the fact that the Nidalee gank going mid lane, remember when Galio used his ult to get away from that was still on cooldown. They didn't have Galio ulti for the bottom lane dive. They needed to actually wait a little bit longer, but they didn't want to do that because the wave was getting thinned out fast enough. So that was actually a nice, I would say, domino effect of the pressure that Swift was laying down there. So he may be incentivized to say, we'll leave it up once more, and maybe we can actually get a kill this time around if I don't try and mess up early on.
Well, Raz, it's coming down to the third and final match. We'll let the casters take it away in just a second. And we'll let the casters take it away in a second to talk about that final pick ban, but this means the world to both Vici and TOP at the moment. Both 0-7 bottom of the table. This first victory is what could help them propel themselves back into the LPL.
Yes, they will. And I think that TOP had a strong game 1, strong draft in game 2, and I think they just need to make a few more tweaks in how patient they are to take game 3. I think I like their chances here.
A lost streak that stretches across seasons. Vici yet to pick up a win since promoting back into the LPL. That ends after this next match. We're going to send it over to Dom and Rusty to take it away.
Of course, it had to end like this. Game 3 between Vici Gaming and TOP Sports Gaming. This is the final match. It has been 244 days since TOP's last set win in the LPL, 321 since Vici's last set win in the LPL. And within the next hour, one of these 2 numbers will change and the other will go on.
Oh,
Who
we're straight
will
into
it be? Oh, don't even have time to build the hype anymore because the hype is already here. Picks and bans. Rusty, Galio, first pick again for TOP.
Yeah, one thing we should be looking at, game number 1, they had the Galio. Game number 2, they picked it again, and it was the Rakan and the Kennen that were taken away from them. Well, Vici, they get the victory. They remain consistent through the first 3 bans of draft phase, and now they once again know it's a Galio. Unsurprising from TOP. They're looking towards and they're drafting towards the 5v5 team fights thus far. Vici, knowing this, we have to watch how they draw.
Certainly a change-up for them. We'll have to see how this shakes out. As you said, Cassiopeia once again for Easy Hoon. Tom Kench looks to be the hover for Caveman. That was banned away in Game 2 by Vici themselves. We didn't quite see it in Game 1, so something a little bit safer from Caveman in that bottom lane, perhaps to protect Martin, should TOP target him again.
Both teams on the red side were banning it away. First or second ban phase, doesn't matter. It has been banned away by the red side every time. And this time around, they pick it, which is very good. Firstly, as a takeaway from Cat, they do usually pick their bottom lane now, all in one rotation. And TOP have actually changed up that bottom lane and what it looks like so far with shifts in the AD carry role.
Yeah, Caitlyn locked in for Choo Choo. one of his more well-known champions, banned away from him in that previous game. And we'll get the chance to see him break it out this time. I believe, actually, no, it was TOP that banned it themselves. Sorry,
Yeah.
Vici banned it. Gnar again picked up for Marin here in the top lane, and Gangplank again the answer for Meow. So TOP perhaps looking at something a bit more similar, whereas Vici going back a bit to game 1 plus game 2.
It seems like, Meow knows the Gangplank in a Gnar matchup. He actually farmed quite well as the 1v1 went, so he'd be super comfortable with that. And I do think comfort is the key word there for Vici's top laner. Marin does like to cause discomfort in his play style. He had the Cannon. Well, Cannon's now banned. He picks up the Gnar, and Mini Gnar is a right nuisance to deal with. And Gangplank is just very slippery, very difficult to kill, and going equal means that his execution was sound.
Big damage in those fights as well, landing critical barrels onto Choo Choo and Cat when he needed to, allowing Easy Hoon to pump out tons of damage by zoning with those barrels. But Kalista going to be banned away from TOP. Janna is the ban away from Cat in the bottom lane.
I guess a little bit afraid of Caitlyn with the Janna there. Not exactly your prototypical support that we've been seeing at the moment between these teams. And again, with the Kha'Zix and the Janna gone, it's only the one support to be seen alongside that Rakan in the first 3 bans that were focused at all. Right now, 80 carries and supports the bans from each respective team. I'm curious to see why that Janna was banned. Is it just going to be like the Lulu now? Are they really afraid of a siege composition coming out of TOP that follow it up with, say, the Jarvan and then the Lulu, and that's the comp?
We'll have to see what it's going to be because, as you said, we're looking for jungle and support for TOP. As Sejuani was locked in for Swift, another one of his champions that he's very well known for. Huge engage potential with that Bola. If he manages to catch someone out of position, there's going to be some big follow-up from that Cassiopeia, from that Gangplank. But it might be TOP are the ones looking for the engage themselves. As Jarvan locked in for Karin here.
And this one does make the most sense, especially against the team composition of Vici being able to firstly get rid of the Kalista, get rid of the Varus, acknowledge that whoever the AD carry is going to be, Braum would then be good against by deducing that fact. If they want a hyper carry, if they want a long range carry, a poke carry, Braum does beat all of those. Kalista can circumvent it, and Varus just does too much damage in general to the front target that he hits. And there you go, they choose to play safe. They choose to play the poke support, work with the Tahm Kench. It's a good 2v2 duo here from Vici, but it's not a lane-winning 2v2.
Perhaps something a bit more safe from Martin to allow his team to scale up, allow Easy Hoon to step forward. Because as we said earlier, he has been practicing. He did not take a break during the new year like most folks. He stayed and he scrimmed and he practiced to get better. And it clearly shows. Game number 1, he did a great job on that Cassiopeia with the CS lead over Korn, pressuring him out in that lane. Game number 2, huge damage on that Rise. Now he's back on this Cassiopeia again. Will Vici be able to close out this series off the back of Easy Hoon and Swift stepping forward? Or will TOP Sports Gaming finally end the longest loss streak in LPL history?
And TOP seem to be very inspired by Team WE as how their drafting has gone in this best of 3 series. Game 1 was the Wombo, Game 2 was the WE Wombo. Game number 3 is the WE Siege that we all saw at Worlds in 2017, but it's not going to be the Ardent Sensor Siege that we were seeing at that Worlds. Instead, the Braum is going to be there, and a composition that excels that instead of just taking down the structures, diving you if you're near the structure at all. That's where the Galio comes into play. Korn seems to have found his feet, and it feels like TOP, as long as they're not tilted from that second game defeat, should actually have a bit of strength here, a bit of confidence in themselves.
Yeah, that's the big hope for them. We saw Choo Choo and Cat on screen earlier, chuckling and laughing. They seem to be in rather high spirits and that's coming into this game 3.
That's the thing. They were losing the game already. They almost by some miracle won the game, but they were losing the game anyway. And so it shouldn't actually really affect your mental all that much to lose in the end. Yes, it was close. And yes, the way that they lost just completely sucked for TOP. Well, it's great for Vici. It doesn't affect your mentality all that much. You should be able to reset, come into the 3rd game, be perfectly fine. And that laughter, the smiles that you saw from those two, absolutely reminiscent of that.
Now here's the final chance for these fans to cheer on their teams. The TOP fans representing as loud as they can. Vici, on the other hand, not quite making up for it in volume, but certainly not lacking in spirit. for this Game 3, this ace match, the final game between Topsports and Vici. Already Marin and Kat are in a very unique situation. They're pinging forward onto EasyHoon.
Yeah, this is the Bell ambush. That's what we'll call it. Threatening the top side of the middle lane. Of course, a Braum at level 1 is very dangerous. Marin being ranged as well on the Nara, able to couple with him quite nicely if they want to look for kills, and also just having the slow there on the boomerang toss. So TOP, whilst they're not going to commit to anything, they're looking. You know, this is coy. Doesn't result in anything. They'll just go back to the buffs themselves. And we do actually have a tank for Swift this time around. And we do actually have him starting on the bottom side of the map this time around. And that will do wonders for him not dying to jungle camps coming into the third game. So
yeah,
everything's set up to succeed here for both teams.
Could you imagine a world in which Vici Gaming are able to start the game off without a free death?
If he dies again to jungle camps, I am leaving the desk. It's just you. You're by yourself. I can't handle that.
We'll give it the classic solo cast as Karin immediately steps forward towards EasyHoon and just rushes him out of lane. Already TOP with the change-up, identifying that he did suffer in game number 1 and springboarding him forward into game 2.
Just gives him the get out of lane. You can see the vision placed there as well by TOP at level 1, what that's able to result in. Knowing where Swift started, knowing where Karin wants to go, and how he wants to play around and navigate the jungle. Now, this will come down to potentially a smite battle, but he gets in first.
Oh, he certainly does. That's some good damage with the red buff as Swift is now running and retreating. Blast Cone gives him some distance and allows Swift to back into his own jungle.
And good stuff from the Jarvan here, able to get into the jungle after threatening the mid lane. It doesn't mean too much that he walked through mid, but that actually sped up the process of getting him to the red. And Swift now, from buff to buff, doesn't find what he's after. Went to the Gromp first as well. Of course, the Sejuani with Machete will always do the single jungle camp clears as a priority. And now just gets the scraps of what is left in the jungle. It doesn't feel great to have that Machete and have to go to Raptors, unfortunately, for this Sedge, but she'll be okay because she's level 3.
Not to mention it is Swift, a very intelligent jungler by his own right. He's spotted by a ward on this invade, so TOP well aware of the trade that they're making by sacrificing their Raptors here.
But unfortunately for Vici, whilst the Raptors are good to have for Swift, it's not going to result in getting a major buff. And it does still mean a 3-buff start for Karin, who's still taking the opposition side of the jungle in that red side quadrant. He can recall, then go to his blue. 3 camps waiting for him, and that should result in an experience advantage for the jungler over TOP. And that's a good first step towards getting an advantage on the map at all, when you've got a Gnar doing well in the top lane, when you're able to influence the middle lane just by being there for that little bit of time. And they know where Swift is, which is the other major piece of knowledge.
Not to mention the fact they're able to prevent him from finishing off those Krugs. And with that, he's forced to retreat back to his own side of the map with the recall. Krugs even being finished off by Choo-Choo and Kat.
Yeah, we get to observe the experience of Swift, I guess, at this stage, right? He's being pressured in every single place that he goes, every position. Can Swift continue to stay headstrong? Can he actually find jungle camps and experience by being in the correct place at the correct time? Or does he actually make tragic decisions, forcing fights in places that he doesn't want to be, or do something desperate to get back into this game? He's about to discover that whole jungle he's gone back to is gone. The other side of the map might get Gromp up in the next 10 seconds, but it's all completely gone. There's not a lot.
There really isn't. Like you said, Karin already a level ahead, turning towards his own Gromp as EasyHoon with the Monoflow ban is just pushing Korn out of lane. 27 CS for the recall.
Yeah, Korn's actually done this to himself as a mid laner in this instance, ran out of mana and then chose to stay for extra money. Of course, he has the teleport, so we'll see how much he's able to purchase for himself before coming back. And the answer is not a lot, but maybe enough.
Null Magic Mantle and the Dark Seal as Korn clears out the wave with a quick Winds of War and Justice Punch, beating out the recall of EasyHoon, who this time has taken Airy in that mid lane on the likes of this Cassiopeia.
You know, we spoke towards the mental state of TOP earlier, but the composition itself actually is something that has changed from TOP between games 2 and 3 by having that Caitlyn there, having that Siege there. And the things you'll have to be looking towards with this team as the game progresses is actually going from the mid lane to the bottom lane, working with the Caitlyn. It's not about Marin, it never has been in this set. Well, this composition's actually very good at working around Chou and Kat when they play in the bottom lane, if they can get the push going and set themselves up for success.
Well, if they do find that opportunity, they should break down in Tier 1 eventually. Meanwhile, Swift, like you said, he has been just the unfortunate wanderer traversing around the map looking for something. Karin didn't even finish off these Raptors from Swift's first invade,
And
a
I don't
second
know
invade.
if that was Swift that didn't actually finish off the Raptors and then just did
I believe
to
it was.
himself.
Yeah.
Because he went
his
back in
first
later and
invade.
left them.
Yeah.
It kind of feels bad if you're Swift in that.
Because then they could have been there.
Yeah.
But in fact, they were not. Heads over and finally clears out his own Wolf and Raptors. But now that means that Karin has got to adapt and change up. He's going for the invade, catching the respawn timer of Swift's Raptors. Spots him out at rather low health.
Swift actually has an experience advantage currently as well. It's 5-4. Karin is a scuttle crab away, to be fair, from bridging over to the level 5 mark. Any of the Krugs would get him there.
EasyHoon's actually following this to protect Swift, which means Korn is allowed to push up just a little bit more in this lane.
Fortunately for Vici, that is the exact thing that TOP want. If EasyHoon leaves mid lane, Galio is able to push it, and Galio Ultimate is in range of red buff. So every single time that they press up like that, every single time that EasyHoon's able to leave lane, it's a small victory for the side of TOP.
Already you can see Korn clearing out some of this vision for Vici to open up the opportunity for a potential hero's entrance to the bottom half of the map, as Choo-Choo is just happily trading damage with Martin.
Yeah, Choo-Choo's gone towards the fleet footwork. So happy to trade his health where possible. As long as it's trading, it's a win for TOP's 2v2 down in the bottom lane. Vici on the opposite side, you know, Martin and Caveman just want to keep farming, hit those Kleptomancy procs on the Ezreal wherever possible. But ultimately, they are still looking to just, similar to game 1 and 2 for Vici, let TOP come to them, counterplay it as best they can. It's a Cassiopeia, Sejuani, Gangplank, we mentioned this already, Ezreal and Tahm Kench, not the Braum, but still very good at having people come at you and then counterplaying.
Well, it seems like TOP are getting quite the advantage from Vici playing this almost lackadaisical style, and that Karin has now stolen a second red buff from Swift and continues to keep vision on that side of the map.
Yeah, good timers on jungle camps as well, knowing that Swift was at the blue buff. He was actually too low to contest the red anyway. So they were able to steal a second consecutive red buff, went from red to red, coast to coast. Doing a lot of work, actually, Karin.
Trying to open up an advantage for his team here in this game 3. Haven't seen too much excitement besides that, but we might see some now as EasyHoon heads bottom. Spotted out by a ward, though.
You know, a lot of the changes here, though, Dom, are actually around the top lane as to who's getting advantages. There's a CS deficit in the mid lane, but the Cassiopeia Galio matchup, EasyHoon's been doing that fairly consistently against Korn so far. And the bottom lane's a CS advantage from Martin and Caveman, who have been doing very well, even with any kind of Caitlyn pressure being exerted onto them. So Vici, with those CS advantages, still unlocks Swift for an area of the map to be able to pressure, to be able to push forwards, and that actually results in an objective for them. Where the opposite side of the map is where TOP have been winning, Myron has been unlocked. He's been doing much better into Meow this time around.
Able to push up towards the turret. He's even got Karin there to steal away the Krugs of Swift, but Krugs aren't going to win the game. Meow, with a very timely backing up, sacrifices a healthy amount of CS, but keeps himself alive and keeps his turret standing because it is still early, and EasyHoon is just being a bully.
Yeah, Korn's overstepping. He's trying to get back in the lane, diving in the top
Whoa,
lane.
the predictive stopwatch and the slam. Meow simply flashes away from the turret, cool as a cucumber.
That could have been the worst thing ever, but it ends up being the best thing ever. Big risk for Meow with the use of the stopwatch. Marin also uses the W and tries to stun him whilst he was still in stasis, so very perplexing stuff from TOP when they go for that dive topside. Vici now responding bottom.
Ooh, that's going to be the stun. Tagging onto Cat. You can see the Abyssal Voyage to get the rest of the team behind the turret. They chase it up and follow up with the first kill, Vici Gaming.
And decisive from Vici. Very clean coming out of Swift and EasyHoon, having pressure in the mid lane. And finally, they bring EasyHoon everywhere at the same time. And it feels like they're doing what TOP have been with early pressure, but better. And now that's resulting in more.
Teleport immediately towards the turret from Korn to try to defend it. Still, there are 4 members of Vici here. So Choo-Choo has to stay nice and far back to keep it safe. And Martin, he's walking awfully far forward. Just asserting dominance, yeah.
There was a cannon there, so he wanted to threaten and maybe get the headshot auto attack onto himself instead. He might get a Klepto proc. Worth trade in the end if the cannon goes missing, but perfectly fine from Chocho with no summoner spells, though he is in a lot of pressure. under this turret without Cat available and nearby.
Yeah, Vici, as you said, almost surgically finding the opening in that bottom lane and picking up for themselves this first blood. Martin, 15 CS ahead, 14 down to 13. As he just continues to trade back and forth, back and forth. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, a much better performance from Korn here in this game 3 compared to his game 1. In this same matchup, he's only down about 10, 13 CS.
Yeah, as CS goes, it's still perfectly fine from Korn into the matchup, into the 1v1. There's no kill threat onto a Cassiopeia who has Cleanse, unless Karen's nearby, but Karen has been far more focused on taking away jungle camps from Swift, where Swift has been focused on taking the camps that he can, and then perhaps looking towards ganks now that he's level 6 and beyond. Still the threat is here. No flash, no stopwatch on the gangplank in the top lane. And Swift has to respond to this one. There's no such thing as a trade this time. It would be first turret blood if they leave Meow alone.
He's holding on up there. Swift actually shows himself. The wave crashes. That's a cannon barrage to try clearing it out, and immediately TOP just turn around and back away.
That's okay, however, from TOP. Getting the Gangplank ultimate out, knowing that Swift was nearby. Unfortunately, whilst they're doing this, Chow Chow is still losing in the 2v2. They're still losing pressure in the bottom lane at the outer turret. And so it's not the best overall end result. But as timing goes, wasn't bad from TOP. I like the initiative. There was no Easy Hoon in the mid lane. He was recalling. They had a chance.
Weren't quite able to convert it, though. Martin playing a furious game 3, 15 CS ahead, just hammering onto Choo-Choo and that turret to try and break open the game and perhaps accelerate things for the likes of Vici. And still 12.5 minutes in, it's about 1,000 gold for Vici. Next dragon will be a mountain, so perhaps more priority towards it. Yeah, Swift, I think he thought he was a little bit more clever than that.
Oh no,
he
he's
actually
still
turns
clever.
around and forces the engage. That is, in fact, a clever play. That's the hero's entrance. Knock up. He's going to go onto one. Shield of Duran onto Swift, but Meow has been spat out the backside. Swift is the target. He's low. 250 health. Marin goes in and finds the kill. He's going to follow up with another red buff. Meanwhile, Caveman and Easyhoon running for their lives, but they don't stand a chance. A double to Korn.
And the collapse from all of TOP. The Galio is the difference every single time. Swift thought he had an opportunity to turn around because Meow was there, but just didn't consider the mid laner of TOP being there that quickly. And suddenly, 3-1 in kills. The top side of the map for TOP is going to be doing fantastically after that purchase. Pressure onto the top lane outer turret as well. Maybe the first turret of the game getting closer and closer to going down. Vici overstepped their bounds. And for the first time, we see TOP use their composition in this game.
They've been looking for it, but they finally found it here 13 minutes in. As Marin takes some damage from the barrel. He's still trying to break down this turret, but Meow holds it for yet another wave, nearly 40 CS ahead. But still not quite able to break it open. A minute now until that Elder Dragon is up. Teleport ready for Marin. Should be ready for Meow by that time.
You know, usually you'd look at the Gangplank and you'd say CS deficit, not a big problem for a Kleptomancy user, but with a 1-0-2 scoreline backing Marin, that 30-odd CS and 3 kills being involved in is a massive amount. Red buff also will kill Meow. Oh, he lost his Q.
Oh, looking for more damage. As you said, missing the boomerang, but Marin wants it. He's tanking the turret. No stopwatch. Flashes away and misses Mega as Meow sidesteps on his own.
Now, Flash being traded in a red buff for Marin, even in a health trade like that, is a win for Marin. Usually you'd say the Gangplank because of the oranges being there, but the health regeneration that Marin's got, you can see it on the left of your screen now, as well as hitting Mega. Massive work. Should actually just be the turret now.
Yeah. Vici, they're using this opportunity to pressure bottom, setting up some vision around this dragon as it has spawned. Karen, whoop, surprise, surprise. He's found Swift. Cataclysm dropped immediately. They're trying to body block Flash, and he is saved over the wall by Caveman.
Even ignited by Cat on the backside. Lives, but at what cost is always going to be the question. Marin.
Ooh, steps into the barrel. Now Marin could be in a dangerous spot. Leaps, gets hit by yet another one. Marin goes down. Wins the initial trade, but doesn't consider the bush cheese from Meow.
Now, the fact that the keg was already there from Meow means that he's able to hit the first one nicely. Marin, I'm not sure if he was in an attempt to dash away or to reposition himself to continue to trade. I do feel like he was feeling himself in that trade. Went to take the fight. Ultimately, another keg connects and he's going to die. That's a Trinity Force complete from Meow. So on that big item spike timing, expertly done.
Ooh, Korn trading with EasyHoon for some damage. Again, rocking that quaking.
He hasn't even broken the shield yet.
Additional damage.
That's an Abyssal Mask.
Yeah.
The Q also missed from EasyHoon, so no damage amplification on the Twin Fangs. Funny mid lane to watch if the Q ever misses, but EasyHoon still has a decent amount of control in the lane. There's no real reason for Korn to be pushing him around. We got to watch this fight again on the top side. Marin with the dash. It was okay. Procced the 3-hit, but misses the boomerang and gets hit by the keg. I think clipped, honestly, just by the edge of the AoE. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that
he
did
tried
hit.
to sidestep it, yeah, into the brush.
Yeah.
Still, very good play. Not able to quite turn it around as Meow picks up a kill for himself. Rift Herald being picked up by TOP on this top half of the map as they use that momentum, knowing the Gangplank wants to keep the wave nice and far back. Though that means that Vici get the chance to invade the jungle of TOP on the bottom half.
Yeah, and suddenly Meow's backing away from top lane, expecting Karin to be there, not knowing where Marin is. The Gangplank disappears, has got teleport, and they're diving bottom.
Oh, that's going to be the bullet. Tagging once again. Caveman is the one who gets the kill. Cat is the target as Meow teleports in. Flash from Cat. He's trying to escape this cannon barrage. True Shot barrage will miss, and finally he goes down to Meow as Vici take another turret.
Meow plays it well, and as best as Cat tries to stay alive, it's not going to mean anything in the end for TOP's bottom lane. An apt response from Vici once again, knowing full well that they should be focusing bottom lane. Martin and Caveman are doing serious work down there. Swift is just tipping the balance into their favor even further. Results in a tower, results in a Drake to be followed up with afterwards. And we're seeing this really different dynamic between these teams in these respective games. Game 3 is a completely opposite shift of focus. TOP are all focusing on top side. They want Marin to be going with Karin up there. Vici have said it's all about Martin and Caveman and getting Swift going down there.
I mean, it certainly shows why. 15 CS ahead, 3 assists on Martin. He's been trying to open up the map and certainly is succeeding by constantly pressuring Choo Choo on one of his signature champions in the likes of that Caitlyn on the bottom half of the map. It's almost as if we're watching Vici grow and learn with their communication on stage. It's one thing to practice in scrims and practice in the same room, but truly, your teamwork is forged on under the fires of the stage lights.
Definitely true. The dynamic shifting for Vici, as we mentioned, is a big part of that. But at the same time, Vici, whilst they're showing strengths, they are still showing weaknesses. And they do open themselves up to trades like this because the trade is weak at best for Vici. They shift lanes, they swap towards top side. They want the turret, but they're not even at the turret. They're not even close to the turret. They were doing red buff first. And then the free objectives given to TOP.
That being said, Martin's now crashing in. Taking a look at this gold, 1,000 gold lead from Martin in that bottom lane. Up top, 1,300 gold from Marin. Pretty close just about everywhere else, so you can see where this gold is distributed.
Yeah.
Still, they're going to be able to break it down. And with no dragon for them to worry about, Vici are content to hang on this top half of the map.
They do get it just in time. Lots of damage from Martin, considering he only really has the Iceborne Gauntlet, but he's already upgraded to Muramana at 18 odd minutes into the game. So his damage is significant.
Did he just arcane shift
Oh,
forward?
yeah, he did.
Okay. Martin is really feeling himself this game. As Vici, they're starting to put some pressure onto the map. EasyHoon still pushing up in the mid lane. Again, Martin pushing any lane it's in, it seems like. The only lane that's safe for TOP is the one that has Marin in it, and he's not even in the lane right now. He's taking blue.
And of course, I stand corrected. The turret was taken down. He's, speaking of Marin, instead of Martin, he's gone for the second item rapid fire cannon this time around.
Yeah.
He's diversifying his build order.
So what
not his
does
build
this do?
path.
Is it just about for the laning phase, getting more auto attacks with that hyper proc?
I mean, attack speed does wonders for you against Gangplank for getting the hyper procs. He's not a he's not a tank rather, so you will be doing decent work. The range helps a lot as well for continuing to get those autos.
Oh, that's long range, slow, but nothing else.
But I wonder if it's just because the range is surprising to Meow, and when a lot of the Gangplank lanes are about keg play, and if you can stop the kegs from hitting you, then you win the trade, generally speaking, against a Gangplank. The attack speed helps a lot for killing kegs, and the extra range means that it's harder for a single keg to ever take you down.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's working. 50 CS ahead of Meow in this game as Rift Herald actually has just dropped in the mid lane. EasyHoon is making his way there as the wave is being cleared out as quickly as possible. And that will be a full health charge.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Korn gets good damage onto Martin on the top half of the map.
Yeah, Korn diversifying his build's gone towards Morello's and is doing so much damage there for the mid laner of TOP, destroying Martin's health.
Yeah, Marin shows up as well, stepping forward, even tanking the turret as the wave is cleared out by Choo-Choo. 4 members of TOP in the mid lane, and they break down the tier 1.
Bam, siege composition, able to siege, uses the Rift Herald, and suddenly they get themselves a turret. You look at the other sides of the map, because again, Vici, knowing full well what TOP want to do, should be able to trade somewhere, but they can't. Korn actually won the trade, chunked out Martin, forces him to base, and for Caveman to be there, and suddenly TOP get the objective completely free. And they're still looking towards objectives. You've got Korn topside still threatening. Good map control from TOP. This should help a lot with their vision.
Yeah, well, certainly they only have some defensive wards for now and 1 in the Baron Pit, not to mention that Scuttle Crab in the bottom river. Not placing too many wards off the back of that vision. It's still Vici who are dominating the map with their own vision.
Yeah, we mentioned this at the start of the best of 3 as well, but Vici's warding does seem to be just a little bit superior to that of TOP. They are very refined TOP when it comes to fights around objectives. When it comes to placing vision around those objectives, they're usually quite strong at it, but the interim vision is generally what is lacking.
Once again, you can see that gold on the bottom of your screen. Still looking very similar, though only about 500, 600 gold lead for Marin over Meow, despite the 40 CS change.
Yeah,
Still seeing
flanker.
Martin with the CS lead.
Can't stop the Pirate from getting that booty.
Absolutely not. Unless you try to zone him out of lane as best you can. He did an eyebrow thing. You can't help but chuckle. Alrighty. 22.5 minutes in, 3 kills to 4, even in gold. What are we looking for, Rusty? What breaks this game open?
I hate to be that guy, but it's TOP once again, so we all know what breaks it open. And right now it's
Perhaps
a pick.
something like that, yeah? Ooh, the flash auto lands a stun, and they're going to follow up. He's got a stopwatch, but Cannon Barrage is doing so much, plus Martin firing shot after shot. And TOP biting off way too much more than they can chew. Caveman healing up and going back in.
Yeah, damn, Vici are able to turn that one around very easily, and that coincides with the Baron. That was the objective that I was going to mention when the answer is what did TOP or Vici do to break the game open? Well, a botched attempt at a pick for TOP is what turns this around. And here they go.
Immediate teleports to get TOP back onto the map, but Vici already on the Baron. Karen behind, goes in with the Cataclysm. Here's the hero's entrance. The Wombo Slam catches 4. Is it enough? Look at the burst damage. Baron picked up by Vici and knocked away from getting over the wall. They're going to try to body block, and they are going to succeed. Baron picked up and immediately discarded.
And Vici, yes, they pick up on the mistakes of TOP looking for a pick. Well, then they just go to Baron, and the perfect Wombo scenario happens. 5 people stuck in the pit. The Cataclysm locks them all in. And then Korn just comes barreling through with the grand entrance. Oh my god, TOP have just broken the game open. They are so lucky that Vici got the Baron. If you're Vici, like, oh, the fact that they got that at all saves them the whole game.
That's now Baron gone, but TOP used this opportunity to break open the map. 2 inners broken. TOP even taking the dragon. And the burst damage that we saw in that fight was so unexpected. Haunting guys Morello's from Korn, plus the Abyssal Mask.
Yeah. I mean, fighting inside the Baron Pit is the ultimate mistake against any kind of Galio Jarvan composition. The execution, I know Raz mentioned it, but it is the easiest to execute because it just makes very obvious sense as to how you're meant to use it. And if Vici stand and allow it to be delivered unto them, well, then they're just asking to lose team fights, asking to lose the Baron buff. We get to watch it again, and Karen, he does come from the backside. There's a ward to spot him. Look at where they're all stuck. You feel bad for them. The only one that doesn't get hit is Martin by the stopwatch, but he's next to Korn, channeling the W to taunt them all. Yes, it does damage now as well on the Galio. And when he's got a Morello's, when he's full AP, pretty much just one-hits them all.
You could see the immediate regret of EasyHoon. As soon as he stepped forward and joined his team, he tried to turn around and retreat, knowing there was a chance, but just not quite enough. Meanwhile, you saw an attempted gank onto Korn in the bottom half of the map. He did Hero's entrance to Karen once again, just like it did in Game 1 to escape.
You know, more often than not, a lot of teams will attempt to steal the Baron in that situation and look for the fight afterwards. It was about the timing there for TOP that stands out to me as like the biggest win for them overall in that trade. They didn't care what the health of the Baron was. They only cared about getting the 5v5 team fight. Baron was the afterthought. Firstly, that's just nice progression from TOP.
To think of something other than the Baron?
Yeah, knowing that they just want to get the 5v5, get the wombo, and they do so successfully. But they executed on it perfectly as well without that hesitation. I think the lack of hesitation is the real key there.
They're able to quite cleanly pick up that ace. Still only a 2,000 gold lead, so not too much of a lead, though you've got to imagine the emotional burden that Vici are feeling after a play like that. Because again, this is Game 3. This is the ace match. It's been 240 days since TOP have won a series, 320 since Vici have won a series in the LPL. And while Vici have won in the LSPL, this is the big leagues. This is where they've really got to show they've got what it takes to keep up.
And they've taken games off EDG, right? Like, they have been able to keep up at moments, but at other moments it looks like they're not even here to play on that day. And we've seen a bit of shades of both from Vici throughout this set. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. We've seen all of it. And it's just about which Vici shows up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. They're at a gold deficit. It isn't substantial, and you can tell by Vici's positioning on the map that they feel like they're behind, but not significantly behind enough to just be hiding. They do have an opportunity. Martin knows he is strong. That is 2.5, 3.5 rather, items completed with the executioners calling. That is a very big Ezreal, and all Vici need to do, their composition is designed to do it. Protect Martin. Let him carry, and he will carry.
Well, they're going to have the chance as they step back onto the high ground, seeding the vision that they worked so hard to set up. As Karin tries to step in and reduce the damage, there's a headshot onto EasyHoon as Korn steps forward. Wave is chipped away by Vici, but still, this is some good damage. With Karin on the side, they have to respect the potential dive. And like you said, Rusty, this was the change for TOP's composition here in this next game. It's not just the five-man wombo.
It's the Caitlyn.
It's the dive, it's the Caitlyn, it's the siege, and with it, they're able to break down the final inner turret, the final tier 2 of Vici.
Yeah, another inner turret dropping, being that last remaining one, as you mentioned. And again, the map opens up further for TOP. With that last one gone, the base becomes harder to crack from TOP. However, on the opposite side, Vici much more easily able to sit back and defend their base if they choose to do so. And you would expect that from them. And so you have to look at what's next for TOP. Are they going to be able to break the base? They're going to be able to win.
Ooh, looking for a
dash as well, frozen.
But the animation still goes on, Justice Punch buffering.
Today I learned.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Cat coming in from the side. Slowed by Miasma. Teleport very deep. Marin is behind them. He procs Meganar. Hero's entrance. He's going to knock up Meow. Marin over the wall. He's being snared and stunned. They trade back and forth. Martin finally joins, but they manage to find the kill onto Meow. Marin is looking for it. He's thinking, but decides to allow Vici to escape.
And Marin instead just zones. They'll take the single pick on a Meow, and they'll walk towards the top lane. They're threatening mid simultaneously. And here they go, the siege towards the top lane inhibitor turret.
Unbreakable gets the minions in. Teleport from Korn allows him to join as Marin is harassing from the side. Still, they're getting slow chip damage onto the turret. Not quite enough to finish it off, but Marin has already prepped a wave in the mid lane. TOP continue their pressure, looking for a turret, but are unable to find one.
Yeah, Chocho has to walk the safe way to get towards mid lane, so he's not going to be able to contribute damage to the structure, and so it will be left standing. Both top and mid have now been chipped away, mid just a little bit more significantly. However, the turrets are standing. Everything is still alive. Vici's hopes and dreams in this game well and truly still there. And it means that the next objective for TOP, as expected of course, you can't realistically siege against Vici unless they made a mistake. It will be the Baron.
Yeah, but look how diligent Vici are being as they push forward onto the map. TOP just emptied all of their wards onto the red side map of Vici behind that Baron buff, and immediately they are cleared out. Caveman, Swift, and Martin stepping forward to keep that Baron buff clear and safe. Though TOP will get back onto the map first, Vici are prepared to match them, and they could be ready for this fight.
They certainly should be, and I feel like that's where TOP, with what they're currently doing, is very clever. Of course, clearing the mid lane, getting mid lane priority, then being able to move that over towards the Baron. It means that it's a lot easier to place that vision down, win the vision battle, the vision war even. It feels like it's a slow-paced, drawn-out affair when it ever comes to this. And Marin, meanwhile, this may well be a 1v1 for the Fire Drake. Marin's still very powerful. He's found himself with a 50 CS advantage. He will just solo that one out if Vici all reveal themselves.
Yeah, finishing off the Adaptive Helm and a Randuin's Helm, and that's the name of that item.
Yeah.
I was just gotta trust, just gotta dive in.
I mean, yeah.
And, whoa, he's actually being collapsed upon, though. Leaps out of the miasma. That's the Randuin's. Even a flash being used to escape as Vici just harassed. And the Abyssal Voyage. That's going to be the slam to stun forward, but nobody took the journey, and CC locked. Caveman goes down.
What you doing, Caveman? Not too sure what he's... I'm not even sure that he's sure what he was doing. He just ulted in. Korn's now sieging top lane, and yes, they get an Infernal, but TOP just stopped the recalls.
Karin is chasing up another excellent miasma to slow the further chase, but Korn doesn't even care. He's chipping away so much damage onto it.
It's just so hard to kill an aftershock Galio whenever he presses W, and has crowd controlled somebody. He's going to walk away. That turret is a stone's throw from falling, and now with no Caveman alive, no Tahm Kench, and no Tahm Kench ultimate for even when he respawns, here goes TOP.
That's the Cannon Barrage, spotting TOP. They're going to use it to do damage towards this Baron. EasyHoon steps forward. He knows he's been spotted out. Now Marin on the far side pins him against the wall, but Swift is looking for the steal. Can he find it? Korn is ready with the snare. Meanwhile, TOP have turned into the river to kill off Martin using both his flash and heal. They turn to finish off Meow. Another easy kill for them, it seems, as they manage to catch on to EasyHoon. Flash and Cleanse to retreat, but TOP are just making the better decisions in this fight, as Martin will zone away Swift yet again.
Uh-oh, he's become mini. That's the worst form for Swift.
That's a hyper proc. Caveman with the respawn, able to defend it, but TOP just turn towards the Baron.
There he goes. Marin now just playing distraction, trying his best to trade as he can.
That's going to be a Bola. There's a hero's entrance. They could try to turn this stopwatch onto Swift. He has no flash. He has no chance. He goes down. Still no Baron completed off by TOP. Karin going very low as this is the raid boss. But TOP are just winning the individual fights.
And this may actually be game dom.
They finally finish it off. The Baron is picked up. TOP get the kills on top of it. The icing on the cake. Turning onto the inhibitor, like you said, they could try to end here and now.
So many minions, Baron empowered, Cholchol's on the Caitlyn. It looks like they might be able to do so. Marin, if need be, can teleport in. They have so much presence. They are looking, they're at least considering.
Yeah, the wave is cleared out. Martin is finally starting to get some damage back in. Marin steps forward to zone that Ezreal away. Maybe not ending the game just yet, but at the very least, that's one inhibitor down and another inhibitor turret broken.
Closer than you would like for Vici to ending that game, and that was the tango around the red side of the jungle. That whole quadrant just became a bit of a salsa as well. They were changing dances on the fly as they were going. Didn't really know what the strategy was going to be ultimately for Vici, and that's the real concern, because TOP just, they had them on the ropes every single moment of that trade throughout the jungle. It was massively prolonged, but there was nothing Vici could do besides check. If you don't check, the Baron's gone.
Yeah.
If you check and they find you instead, well, they're not doing Baron, but now someone else has to check because I'm dead, because I checked. That was it, back and forth.
The catch-22 for Vici, and they fall prey, unable to escape from the conscription of TOP over the course of that extended engage. But now look at the items. TOP are massive. Marin is full build now, 6 items and racing forward.
Straight in the AD, Marin knows what he wants to be. If you're going to build a rapid fire cannon, it'd be a bit of a half-half in terms of tank and damage. You may as well go Guardian Angel and have a second life for the lack of tankiness that you have. I respect that.
The health he gets back. Think of the effective HP. Maybe it works out in terms of damage. Marin pulling the attention of Vici towards the inhibitor. Choo-Choo steps forward. Minion wave on the way in both lanes. But the inhibitor is already broken. Looks like Vici might have been broken here in this game 3.
Two cannons actually putting in some work. Easy Hoon's going to have to deal with them sooner. They'll start taking away that turret. And TOP is starting to collapse towards the bottom side of the map. A desperation team fight is a sooner rather than later affair, honestly, for the side of Vici. They're running out of time.
Baroned up super creeps hammering onto the Nexus turret as Korn is just pulling
look at
them
Chocho.
apart. And still, they are just trading autos as best they can. One has gone down. Swift steps forward. Unbreakable has been used, but Swift still holding on to the stun. He's got to find the right target. Marin finishes it off. 3 inhibitors are down with Baron buff and a minion wave.
Still sieging.
TOP trying to break it off. That's a knockup. It's TOP who forced the fight. They step forward. The Bola goes wide in between, and Swift pays the iron price. He goes down as Marin with a slam on the side finishes off Martin, and Vici retreat to the fountain, certainly unable to come back from this, as TOP off an excellent Baron engage close out this series and end a 240-day loss streak.
36-minute victory for TOP, and it felt like they were in control for most of the game once Vici handed them the wheel. That's the unfortunate thing for Vici, is actually started with control. The early invades were good from TOP. The early control from the jungle position was good from TOP. But the 5v5, the dives bottom, Vici had control of the map as a team. And then it was gone. And then all it took was one moment in the Baron buff. And all of the hard work that Vici had done was completely unwound, completely turned back the other direction. The siege composition of TOP had more than enough oomph to end that game out.
Bit of a smile shared between Marin and Easy Hoon, the former teammates, now finding themselves facing off from across each other. And this time it is the new Marin and Korn to TOP that prove superior. And for the first time in 2018, TOP get to take a bow on stage.
Marin in his first best of 3 in the LPL takes the bow too. Between the battle of Marin and Swift, who could get that first victory. Between TOP and Vici, who could get that first victory. TOP come up clutch. And Marin did play well,
he did,
for what it's worth. Credit to the top laner. He built awkwardly, but he makes it work. And it's very Marin-esque of him, of course. Plays Kennen in game number 1 of the best of 3 series. Something that everybody wants, one of his favorites. And he made it work to a very high degree. It was banned away for the rest of the set. And that third game, that last game, they were clean. But honestly, I wouldn't say it was Marin in game 3. It was Korn.
Yeah.
Korn was a monster.
Massive damage. And this is completely different from the Korn that we saw last year. It seems like he's really stepping forward in this Galio. While game 1, he played a tank. Games 2 and 3, he started to slowly transition into more damage-oriented builds, and it absolutely paid off.
This was a Korn that got relegated from the LPL, said, I'm not coming back until I'm good enough. Came back, he wasn't good enough, so he left. But now he's back and he's playing very well. So maybe he's finally good enough, Tom.
That is the question. That being said, we did see Vici really start to come to life towards the end of that series. Swift playing his Nidalee in game number 2, seemingly spurring Martin forward on the likes of that Ezreal, doing huge damage. You can see he still did the second most highest damage in the game here.
Yeah, Martin was doing a lot of work. Martin and Caveman as the 2v2 looked outstanding in game number 3 for the bottom lane, as it were, but the ultimate usage was a bit iffy from Caveman sometimes.
Trying to go in deep. He just wasn't able to succeed there. Sorry, our headset just cut out in the middle of that. But again, he was that was Caveman looking for the Abyssal Voyages. He was hunting for them, but nobody really followed them up, and then he went too far.
And that was, again, that one time he went too far results in inner turrets falling down, results in so much for TOP, and they were very good at capitalizing when they found advantages.
Yeah, they certainly were. Well, now it's up to our analysts to break down. That's TOP's first win.
It certainly was TOP's first win, and also they break the 18-game losing streak, 18-series losing streak.
Yes.
Unfortunately for Vici, who just promoted from the LSPL, still yet to pick up a victory here in the LPL for this split. Now, Raz, moving into this match, Game 3 looked very different from Game number 1 and Games number 2. We're going to take a look at a couple of replays in a second, but first up, it was TOP, not playing towards the bottom side anymore. This time round, it was all focused on top side of the map.
Yeah, and I thought it was really just surrounding the pressure that the jungle matchup had, actually. That Karn was able to actually impact based off of the Jarvan versus Sejuani matchup. Gets red buff for himself, immediately punches towards the enemy red buff, pushes Sejuani off of her bought the topside clear. So suddenly, he had no control of his topside jungle. Jarvan has full control there, takes the first red buff, takes the second red buff. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third red buff that we got to see coming out of TOP. Vici didn't want that to happen, but unfortunately there was so much control out of TOP in this point in time that this team fight got to happen.
And it was massive showing of TOP's team comp as well. We had the Gnar, the Jarvan, as well as the Galio. 3 games in a row, Korn got his hand on that champion. We heard from Rusty and Dom, they thought that he was a star player in that third and final game. However, Vici were able to fight back. This time, their focus was on the bottom side of the map, and it gave them some nice leads.
Yeah, so the fact that they said, oh, well, you know what, I don't have any control in the jungle anymore, the top side's no more, let's go to the bottom side of the map and let's get a dive going for ourselves, even brings GP into the mix. This is what I really loved about Meow. He recognized how much damage he was going to be able to output, also the slow on top of it. If the Ezreal ulti didn't get the kill, well, his Q was going to be able to do the damage. So even with the earlier kind of deficits that they had for themselves, Vici did not go out without a fight.
And I gave Vici a lot of flack in games number 1 and 2 for not having an accurate gameplay. In game 3, they shut down that lane of Caitlyn Brom, who was trying to see if they could siege up turrets moving into the mid-game. And on top of that, TOP tried to over-push that. They went for a pick that did not work out against Vici. Vici used it to rotate, pick up a pick for themselves, and they moved towards Baron. However, that's kind of where TOP's team comp came online.
That's when you realize how easy of a composition TOP has for themselves. Because we talked about how easy Jarvan Galio is. Game 1, they had the Galio and Rakan as well. So it was just like, at some point, TOP is going to get the combination. They're going to get the Wombo combo for themselves. And they got it just that moment. It felt like, even though Vici Gaming looked like they were able to secure themselves with Baron, it's like, all you really need is a Jarvan delivery system. Korn, we talked about his damage-heavy build. By the time the rest of the carries came up to catch up to him, his Q had already bursted the backline.
The only saving grace for Vici in that entire Baron fight was Swift was still able to secure Baron for his team.
Yes.
But it just delayed the inevitable. It was still TOP that continued pushing with their lead, continued to try and start fights like this, and slowly Vici bled out.
And it was a learning experience for TOP, just because we saw how many mistakes they made with that composition in Game 1 and Game 2. There was a lot more patience with them in Game 3, because when they played around Baron vision a lot better, it felt like Marn was able to kind of get the follow-up from Korn in there as well. I liked the composition that they had, and their play started to finally follow through.
And I think the final thing we have to look towards is TOP brought in a lot of members. So did Vici coming into this match. Marin stepping in,
Yes.
Korn stepping in. Was it because of these new members that they picked up today that allowed TOP to pick up this victory, or were they already looking to try and succeed against Vici without those replacements?
I would say it's a 60% boost because of the talent. Korn had a strong play that we didn't see from Goom, even with the picks that he had for himself. And then Marin was just a constant carry threat in the top side of the map, not only because of his picks, because constant times he was able to output pressure when that wasn't going to be the case if you put in the 2 other top laners of Lies. And it just felt like that this time around the skill was there for TOP, but also the pick ban. I thought that the coach, of course, for the team really got them strong pick ban time after time after time. Sure, Vici gave it away for them, but they were able to take the opportunity to get themselves that pick.
Well, with that, TOP are able to stop the losing streak that they've gone on since last year, and that was off the backs of Marin as well as Korn, who stepped in for the team for this match today. For now, though, we have Clement Chu standing by with Korn, the mid laner, for TOP for an interview.
Hello everyone, and I'm Clement Chu. With me is the victorious Korn. Korn, 你可以跟大家打声招呼吗？
大家好，我是那个拓普的中单控。
So I think the name Korn does ring a bell with a lot of our viewers, but a lot of you might have forget who he is. He's been the world finalist in Season 4 with Starhorn Royal Club and also was the mid laner for Newbie last split. I want to ask Korn, where have you been and how has your path back to the LPL been? Korn， 我想就是跟大家提醒一下，其实我们很多西方观众可能对你的名字有些印象，你之前是这个世界赛的亚军跟这个 Starhorn Royal， 那去年的话也是在Newbie 上面担当中路的这一个位置，你能跟我们讲一下你最近做了什么，过年过得怎么样，然后怎么样回到 LPL 的赛场吗？
因为就是牛逼没了嘛，然后我当时是因为有合同在那边，所以说后面就是因为合同问题，大概就是等的时间比较晚，然后大概过年前我才就是把队伍确定下来，就是因为拓鹏那边就是需要就是多个选手，就是去打轮换制这种一样，然后过年的话过得还是蛮开心的，因为休息了蛮久的。 然后就是个人状态的话不算太好吧。
Okay, so Corin's answer is that you guys haven't seen me for a while because my contract was still with Newbie, and because Newbie disbanded, it took a little bit of time for me to find a new team. And Top reached out; they wanted to have a bit more rotations on the team, so they asked me to come over. As for my new year, I felt like I had a fairly fun time. It was a long, extended break, but for me, I still think I have more to improve on my current status. I think I could be playing a bit better. So my second question for you, Corin, is that we've just saw you've played a lot of Aftershock Galio, all 3 games. You've picked into this champion. Can we ask why Top prioritizes this champion so much? 就刚刚这个系列当中，我们看到你自己的话是选了连续3场的加里奥，而且都是带了这个新改版后的一个余震。你能跟我们讲一下为什么队伍这么样的去重视这一支角色吗？
因为加里奥是我们练习的比较多的，还有就是我个人也觉得，就是这个英雄在中单里面算那种全面性中单嘛，就或许没有那么就是好的持续输，但是他能支援啊，然后打线的话也不会就是被压制很惨那种。然后带余震这个天赋是因为那个 Swift 是我以前的队友嘛，我知道他喜欢抓中路，然后余震这个天赋触发之后就是有双看，所以容易保命。
Okay, so Corin's answer is that Galio is a champion without any real weaknesses. You're good in lane, and you can also roam around and help your teammates. It's also a champion that Top has been practicing a lot. And another point about bringing Aftershock is because previously Swift was my teammate on Newbie, and I know he really likes to come and gank the mid lane. So the Aftershock with the double resistances really helps me survive the revenge of my former teammate right there. And the final question I have for you, Corin, is that we've just seen you guys play 3 back-to-back 4-1 composition games, and the 4-1 is actually a bit rare in the LPL. Can you share your thoughts on how you guys play the 4-1 and how you coordinate with your newest member in Marin? Corin, 我最后想问你一个问题，是我们其实刚看了你们打了3场的一个4-1的一个战术，那其实4-1战术在 LPL 我觉得算是比较少见的，你能跟我们分享一下你们对4-1的一个心得，还有你们怎么跟你们最新的一个这个队友，这个 Marin 来做沟通吗？
就打4-1这个，因为是英雄问题，还有就是因为马瑞这个选手嘛，就是打4-1打得比较好，然后我们就是尽量让他个人去单带，然后我们就是大家互相配合。
Okay, so for the 4-1, it's mainly about the player and also the champions that he plays, and just because we're playing it because Marin is such an incredible player, and it is really about the team coordination elsewhere as well. So that will be all for our interview here. I hope you all had a very good start to the Ear of the Dog, and don't go anywhere because we're coming up next with Invictus Gaming versus OMG.